Hello, writers. Welcome to Bend 1, Session 1 of our test prep unit for writing, studying and practicing constructed response answers. Huh? That just really means that we're going to be working on how you write open-ended questions. And I think you're going to find a lot of similarities in this to all the work we did in Baby Literary Essay. Connection. So readers, before we do some work together, we're going to go ahead and review each kindness because I want you to have the book in your mind. And after we listen to that book together again, I'm going to reread one more passage to you that I really want you to focus in on.
Each Kindness by Jacqueline Woodson. Illustrated by E.B. Lewis. That winter, snow fell on everything, turning the world a brilliant white. One morning, as we settled into our seats, the classroom door opened and the principal came in. She had a girl with her, and she said to us, "This is Maya." Maya looked down at the floor. I think I heard her whisper, "Hello." We all stared at her. Her coat was open, and the clothes beneath it looked old and ragged. Her shoes were spring shoes, not meant for the snow. A strap on one of them had broken. Our teacher, Ms. Albert, said, "Say good morning to our new student." But most of us were silent. The only empty seat was next to me. That's where our teacher put Maya. And on that first day, Maya turned to me and smiled. But I didn't smile back. I moved my chair, myself and my books, a little further away from her. When she looked my way, I turned to the window and stared out at the snow. And every day after that, when Maya came into the classroom, I looked away and didn't smile back. My best friends that year were Kendra and Sophie. At lunchtime, we walked around the schoolyard, our fingers laced together, whispering secrets into each other's ears. One day, while we were near the slide, Maya came over to us. She held open her hand to show us the shiny jacks and tiny red balls she'd gotten for her birthday. "It's a high bouncer," she said, but none of us wanted to play. So Maya played a game against herself. That afternoon, when we got back into the classroom, Maya whispered to me, "I bet you can't guess who the new Jacks champion of the world is." Behind me, Andrew whispered, "Chloe's got a new friend. Chloe's got a new friend." "She's not my friend," I whispered back. Weeks passed. Every day we whispered about Maya, laughing at her clothes, her shoes, the strange food she brought for lunch. Some days, Maya held out her hand to show us what she had brought to school. A deck of cards, pickup sticks, a small, tattered doll. Whenever she asked us to play, we said no. The days grew warmer and warmer. The pond thawed. Grass began growing where snow had once been. One day, Maya came to school wearing a pretty dress and fancy shoes. But the shoes and the dress looked like they'd belonged to another girl before Maya. "I have a new name for her," Kendra whispered. "Never knew. Everything she has came from a second-hand store." We all laughed. Maya stood by the fence. She was holding a jump rope, but did not come over to us to ask if we wanted to play. After a while, she folded it double, rolled the ends around each hand, and started jumping. She jumped around the whole schoolyard without stopping. She didn't look up once, just jumped, jumped, jumped. The next day, Maya's seat was empty. In the class that morning, we were talking about kindness. Ms. Albert had brought a big bowl into class and filled it with water. We all gathered around her desk and watched her drop a small stone into it. Tiny waves rippled out, away from the stone. "This is what kindness does," Ms. Albert said. "Each little thing we do goes out, like a ripple, into the world." Then Ms. Albert let us each drop a stone in as we told her what kind things we have done. Joseph had held the door for his grandmother. Kendra helped change her baby brother's diaper. Even mean old Andrew had done something. "I carried teacher's books up the stairs," he said, and Ms. Albert said it was true. I stood there, holding Ms. Albert's rock in my hand, silent. "Even small things count," Ms. Albert said gently, but I couldn't think of anything and passed the stone on. Maya didn't come to school the next day, or the day after that. Each morning I walked to school slowly, hoping this would be the day Maya returned and she'd look at me and smile. I promised myself this would be the day I smiled back. "Each kindness," Miss Albert had said, "makes the world a little bit better." But Maya's seat remained empty, and one day Miss Albert announced to the class that Maya wouldn't be coming back. Her family had to move away, Miss Albert said. Then she told us to take out our notebooks. It was time for spelling. That afternoon, I walked home alone. When I reached the pond, my throat filled with all the things I wished I had said to Maya. Each kindness I had never shown. I threw small stones into it, over and over, watching the way the water rippled out and away, out and away. Like each kindness, done and not done, like every girl somewhere, holding a small gift out to someone, and that someone turning away from it. I watched the water ripple as the sun set through the maples, and the chance of a kindness with Maya became more and more forever gone.
Our teacher, Miss Albert, said, "Say good morning to our new student." But most of us were silent. The only empty seat was next to me. That's where our teacher put Maya. And on that first day, Maya turned to me and smiled. But I didn't smile back. I moved my chair, myself, and my books a little farther away from her. When she looked out my window, When she looked my way, I turned to the window and stared out at the snow. And every day after that, when Maya came into the classroom, I looked away and I didn't smile back. So I want you to take a moment and think about this. What do these first few pages show about the kind of person Chloe is? Remember, it's important to support your answer with details from the story. I don't want you just repeating what happens in the scene. You need to make sure you're answering the question. What do these first few pages show about the kind of person Chloe is? I'll give you a moment to think. So I want to make sure that I teach you today that experienced test takers read prompts and questions carefully, asking themselves, what is the question asking? And where in the text can I find evidence to support my answer? So let's come back to this question for a minute. It's not enough just for me to go, oh, yeah, Chloe moved herself away. That doesn't answer the question, what kind of person Chloe is. That might be great evidence for the question, but it doesn't answer the question. So if I look through this section of text here, she doesn't smile back, she moves her chair away, and she looks away from her. Those are 3 great pieces of evidence, but they don't alone answer my question. I need to take that evidence and say that, yeah, all of that evidence adds up to the fact that Chloe is unkind. So good test takers read prompts and questions carefully, and they constantly ask themselves, what is the question asking? And where in the text can I find evidence to support my answer? And that second part today is what we're going to focus heavily on. So here are some strategies for answering test questions. Read all parts of the question. You're going to come across some questions in your test taking experiences that have multiple parts. Sometimes they're all grouped together too. You read and reread a question. It's important to make sure you've paid attention to what the question is asking. Pay attention to key parts like the word why. Because here's a hint. If it's a why question, you're going to need to answer with because or in order to. So looking for those different types of keywords, it's going to help you form your answer. They answer the question. And it's important to skim the passage for details to support your answer twice. So you really always want to push yourself. Think back to our app rubric that we were using in Baby Literary Essay. You want to push yourself to answer your question and prove it not once, but twice. Constantly keeping in the back of your mind, what is the question asking and what evidence will I need to find? So we're going to practice together. First, we're going to go ahead and read the passage, Tiger in Trouble. Here's our passage for today. It's an excerpt from Tiger in Trouble and More True Stories of Amazing Animal Rescues by Kelly Milner Halls. One thing I want to point out that's really important whenever you're looking at these passages as well is to pay attention to the directions. So in this case, the directions were even before the title. If I were working through this on a test, it says directions, read this passage, then answer questions 25 through 31. So that also lets me know that questions 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, and 31 are all going to be about this passage. Okay, so it's really important that we always start with the directions. It's a really important test-taking strategy. So, excerpt from Tiger in Trouble and More True Stories of Amazing Animal Rescues by Kelly Milner Halls. And another thing you can notice here is the paragraphs are actually numbered down the side. This is a really great strategy that can help you when you're stopping and jotting notes, because you could jot down what paragraph you found information in if you need to go back. And sometimes questions will reference specific paragraphs. So it helps you as a reader find the right paragraph without having to go through and count each time you see an indent. After 2 days, Nitro was finally getting better. He was hungry. He even started to walk around his cage. But Catherine noticed something strange. 3 of the 4 walls of the cage were made of concrete. The 4th wall was made of chain link. Most animals face the chain link wall. They like to watch what is going on outside of their cages. Nitro did not. He would sit and stare at the concrete walls, Catherine said. And when he did turn toward our voices, he would follow the sound of our voices, but not our movements. Catherine knew this meant one thing. Nitro was blind. Nitro's new life. Now that he was healthy, Nitro was ready for his new cage, but he couldn't see it. His owner in Kansas had never noticed Nitro was blind. The cage had been so small, Nitro had been able to memorize every inch, so he may not have seemed blind. Why was Nitro blind? That's hard to tell. Catherine ruled out a brain injury, and there were no scars around Nitro's eyes that might mean he had an injury. We just don't know what caused his condition, Catherine said. Here's what they did know. The caretakers at the rescue had a big challenge ahead of them. They had to help a blind tiger find his way without the use of his eyes. Nitro walked through his big new home. He reached out with huge 6-inch paws. He was trying to feel what was ahead of him. He did not know where things were around him. Not a twig, not a path, not a feeding dish. He was a little afraid. He could never tell when he was getting close to running into the fence. He was roughing up his nose because he would walk right up to the fence and hit it, Catherine said. We kept thinking, you have to slow down. But how do you teach a blind tiger how to find a fence he cannot see? We decided to start marking the fence with peppermint, Catherine explained. He would know when he smelled it he should slow down. The peppermint marked the borders of his space. Once he learned where his fences were, the people at the rescue put down sand pathways. The sand pathways led to Nitro's food, water, and his cozy den. When Nitro felt sand under his paws, he knew he would end up in one of those areas. When Nitro felt leaves, dirt, and twigs, he knew he was not heading in the right direction. In time, Nitro learned that where every bump, every tree, and every food box was in his new cage. When he did, the sand and the peppermint could be put away. Nitro was finally home. Caretakers noticed a big change in Nitro. He mastered his space. He couldn't see people, but he knew where they were, even if they stood perfectly still. He chuffled in their direction to get them to answer. He wanted to hear if he knew their voices. He wanted to know who they were. Nitro, the blind tiger, has become a rescue favorite. Volunteers guide people through Carolina Tiger Rescue once a week. They never miss a stop at Nitro's cage. They tell his story and give him little treats, scraps of chicken or beef. Nitro never disappoints. He has a great attitude, Catherine says. Things haven't been easy for him, but he still comes up to the fence, happily chuffling. Did you know? What's a chuffle? It's the sound a tiger makes when it sees or smells a friend. It sounds like a purr with a tiny cough. Great. So now that we've read the passage, the next thing we need to do is read and reread the question. And I want to be thinking, what is this question asking me? So the question we're focused on in our mini lesson today is, what is the main idea of the passage, Tiger in Trouble? Use 2 details from the passage to support your response. What is the main idea of the passage, Tiger in Trouble? Use 2 details from the passage to support your response. Okay, so what is this asking me? It's asking me to find the main idea. What do I know about main idea? Okay, main idea is like, what is my passage about? And once I find what it's about, I need to find 2 details to support that. Okay, so then step 3 is to go ahead and look for the information in the text to support my answer. What evidence am I going to need to find? And then when you're working through your test-taking strategies, you want to make sure you actually go ahead and answer the question and prove it with the evidence from the text. That's going to be our work for the next section. So today we are just focused on gathering our evidence. So this format should look familiar to you. A really great test-taking strategy, especially since you'll be reading on the screen, is to use some scrap paper or Post-it notes to make some boxes and bullets organizers. So in my box is going to go my answer. And I know what I'm searching for right now is the main idea. Like, what is this mostly about? So I'm going to go back and skim through the text. I'm going to kind of read a little bit here and there, think about what I've already read, and pull out some patterns I see. So as I went through the text, I noticed they were talking about things to kind of help Nitro. So they started making the fence with peppermint to help Nitro learn the borders. And then they made the sand pathways to direct Nitro. that's 2 pieces of evidence, but I decided to push myself and see if I could find anything else that related to that, because the main idea should be a really big takeaway. And eventually they removed peppermint and sand when Nitro learned about his space. Okay, so what does that all show me that this passage is really about? Helping a blind tiger find his way. So all of this evidence supports the idea that at this rescue, they're trying to help a blind tiger find his way. That's really what I learned about in this narrative nonfiction text. So now it's time for you to go off and try it on your own. You have a copy of Tiger in Trouble, and you're going to work on collecting evidence today as well. For the following question, in the passage, Tiger in Trouble, how does Catherine feel about Nitro? Use 2 details from the text to support your response. Here's your big hint. You're going to be reading this text on your screen today, just like you would when you take the test. So you should have some scrap paper or sticky notes in front of you so that you can use boxes and bullets to jot down different ideas that are jumping out at you to help support your answer. I'm going to give you about 10 minutes to go off and work on this. If you feel like you've read the passage and you have some really strong evidence in those 10 minutes, you can go ahead and read on your own, and then we're all going to come back together in about 10 minutes and talk about some of the evidence that you found. Welcome back, my writers and awesome test takers. Let's go through some of your evidence. Did we find appropriate evidence to help us answer the question, in the passage, Tiger in Trouble, how does Catherine feel about Nitro? Use 2 details from the text to support your response. Let's hear some of that great evidence.